Hi, I'm Roger. Welcome back to my own little kitchen. We're doing something a little special today. We're going to make Easter egg cookies. It's very traditional in Italian history. I was raised on them. My folks had them when they were growing up, and I still make them for friends and family today. I've already hard-boiled and dyed 12 large eggs. They're in the process of drying completely right now, but this is the traditional dough to make. What I have here is I have 1 stick, 8 tablespoons or 1/4 pound of softened butter. Different recipes call for different things. Some say tablespoons, some say cups, whatever. To soften the butter, you can either leave it out in a warm spot on your counter for about an hour or so, or this is going to really upset some foodies, but I usually just take a stick of it and put it in the microwave for maybe 10 seconds. A lot of foodies think that if you put it in the microwave, you change the taste. I haven't found that to be so. So I'm going to turn this on low and get it a little bit softer, just for a minute or so. And then I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar. Scrape down the sides a little bit. And when they say cream the butter and sugar together, you want it done till it's light and fluffy. Depending on the speed you're using, it can be anywhere from 3 minutes to 5 minutes. You don't want to overbeat it though, or it gets pretty thick. Alright, to this I'm going to add my flavors. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon, well actually just shy of a tablespoon, of the zest of 1 orange. I also have a ½ teaspoon of anise extract. Now if you're using anise oil, you only need a couple drops, 2 or 3. This little contraption is called a mortar and pestle. This is the mortar, this is the pestle. In here I have 2 pinches of anise seed. Because it's not cracked, the flavor won't come out so well. So I want to just gently push these down a little bit to get the seeds to open and release the flavor. Now anise is very traditional in Italian cooking. It has the flavor of licorice. Some people don't like it. When my kids were young, they didn't much care for the flavor of anise. So I would also add orange juice from fresh squeezed oranges and the orange zest to cut down the anise flavor a little bit. And most of the people who eat these cookies love the combination of the orange and anise. Anise is a seed, as I said. A lot of times you find it in sweet Italian sausage. You'll see those little seeds in there. That's what it is. It comes from the fennel plant. And if you remember in one of the episodes, I did braised fennel. That's where the seeds come from. Now I'm also going to add the juice from 1 orange. And I'll get that mixed up. Now that the flavors are added in, I have 6 eggs, lightly beaten, and I'm going to add that in. Alright, now it's time to add the dry ingredients. In this bowl I have 6 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add 6 teaspoons of baking powder, not soda, baking powder. And then I have 1 teaspoon of salt. It's always best to incorporate your dry ingredients first as opposed to putting them in individually. It mixes a little bit better. Now I'm going to add a little bit before I start this up. Always on low, unless you want a face full of flour. And as it mixes in, I'll add a little bit more each time. Now it's just about done. But you want to make sure you have everything incorporated. So along the top of the panel, some of the flour that I put in landed and didn't incorporate. You want to make sure you got everything off the sides. Move it around a little bit with your spatula, so that the stuff that's been mixing that's at the top of the bowl gets down to the bottom. It just helps incorporate things just a little bit better. Another minute and we'll be done. Alright, this is just about finished here. As you can see when I take this out, the bottom of the bowl is pretty clean. The sides just have a little bit. That means that you have a nice medium dough that's very easy to handle. One thing you don't want to do, you want to avoid over beating the dough, or the cookies or whatever pastry you're making can turn out on the tough side. I was just asked, what's the difference between a crisp cookie and a soft cookie? That has a lot to do with if you're using baking powder, which is what I used in here. That's a leavening agent that makes things rise a little bit. Baking soda, which makes for a little crisper cookie. Baking soda is what you use in oatmeal cookies. And you know how they have that crunch to them on the outside. It also has to do with how thick or thin you roll out the cookies, and at what temperature and how long. So time, temperature, and ingredients all affect how crisp a cookie is. So now I'm going to flour the board, roll out the dough into ropes, and then make my Easter basket cookies. Now this little instrument is called a pastry scraper, a dough cutter, your best friend. It's just a very convenient tool to have around. So with all of this dough, I have 12 cookies, so I want to make 13 balls out of this. And the reason for the 13th is I need 1 ball of dough to use as a handle to go over each egg. And as you can see, it's not falling apart. You can see the little flecks of the orange peel in it. So let's see how well I do measuring this up. That's always the hardest part, getting equal sizes on things, on cookies, on anything you're doing by hand. And once I know that I have 13 equal sizes, then I'll roll them again a little bit tighter so that when I press the hard-boiled eggs into them, the cookies won't crack. And again, the eggs are already hard-boiled and dyed. Some Italian recipes say you don't have to cook them first. I always do. Now these aren't supposed to be confused with Italian Easter bread. That also will have hard-boiled eggs in it, but that's not a sweet dough. It's a sweeter bread than most, but it's not the same as a cookie dough. Okay, so now I have 12 plus 1. That one we'll use for the handles. I'll take each of these, roll it out, This would take my mom about 40 seconds. I never knew how she did it. Experience, I guess. You want to roll it out to about finger size, half-inch, whichever is more convenient. And then what you do, you just take it, roll it up, coming up a little bit with each pass. So you make almost like a little nest. So you want to coil it up, coming up with the coil, and then at the ends, you want to water it down a little bit so that it sticks. Just press it down a little bit. Otherwise, as it cooks, it's going to come undone. Then you take an egg, set it there, take the one that we're using for the handles, take a little bit off that, now you're going to want to roll this a little bit thinner than what you rolled this. So maybe 3/8 of an inch. Wet the ends, move the egg over, anchor it down there, do the same thing on this side so that the handle is wedged between the egg and the cookie. And I'm going to repeat this step with the other eggs. Alright, I'm going to show you an easier way of doing this too. If you don't want to roll out the coils and wrap it around, you can also do this way. You can take it, roll it into a ball, maybe a little bit egg-shaped. Roll out your handle, take your egg, gently press it in, lift it back up, dip the ends of your handles in there, wrap it around the egg, and then press it back into the cookie. You want to make sure that even with the coiled ones, you push it down into the cookie. Otherwise, as they cook, they double in size and they'll become top heavy, and some of them will start listing one way or the other. But trust me, they taste just as good. So I have all 12 eggs done. I have my oven preheated to 350, and since these are half sheet pans, I can put them next to each other this way in the oven and cook them at the same time. By the way, these are ungreased sheets. You don't want to grease them for this. Okay, the Easter egg cookies are done and cool. As you can see, I have 6 here. This is basically how they're supposed to look. But the best made plans of mice and men. I also have some that fell over. But you know what? Unlike other cooking shows, I accept my failures as much as I accept my success. So we're going to decorate all of them. The cookie is good on both, and we're going to go with that. In this bowl, I have 1/8 of a pound of butter. That's 1/2 of 1 stick. It's softened a little bit. I actually softened it in the oven that I did the cookies in. I made sure it wasn't too hot before I put this in though. So it's on the soft side. On this, I have 1 cup of powdered sugar, also called confectioner's sugar. Here I have 1 teaspoon of orange extract to give it just a little more flavor. And here I have milk. I'm only going to add a few drops at a time. I may not need it all. I want to get this so that it has a drizzle consistency. And whenever you're doing anything with powdered sugar, you add your liquids just a little bit at a time, because it goes from paste to as thin as water in no time at all. And then you have to add more powdered sugar, and then you have to add more liquid, and then you have to add more of this. So just take your time. I'm almost there. And what I'll do when I get this to the right consistency, I'll spoon a little over a few of the cookies at a time, and then I'm going to sprinkle them with some rainbow nonpareils. They're white and blue and pink and yellow, just right for Easter. Almost there. Okay, now I have it nice and drizzly. Is that a word, drizzly? It is not. So for a little more control, I'll use a smaller spoon. And I'll drizzle this over the handle and over the cookie. This is just the glaze for the non-Ferrios to stick to. And again, I'll only do a couple cookies at a time because once the glaze sets, the parallels will bounce right off. I think I'll just call them decorations from here on out. Non-Ferrios is such a mouthful. So I've got 3 done. And now I'll just sprinkle this over so that it sticks to the glaze. You want to keep it in a rimmed pan because these can bounce all over, get all over the floor, get carried to your carpeting, and as soon as they get any kind of moisture on it, they bleed. So you could have multicolored carpeting. Not that that's ever happened to me. But you can see how that's sticking to the glaze. I'll go ahead and finish up the rest of the cookies, or at least another 3. 3 more and we're done. Now one thing you have to remember is that since these have hard-boiled eggs, after you decorate them, you need to keep them in the refrigerator. You can keep them loosely covered, you can put them in an airtight container, and they'll last in the refrigerator for 4 or 5 days. Everything is all decorated. I'll put these in airtight containers and put them in the refrigerator, and they'll be good for 3, 4, 5 days. The good thing about this is you break off the cookie part, and it's great for dunking in coffee, and then you eat the egg separately. It makes for a very nice Easter morning treat. It always did in my family. So I'm Roger. Happy Easter.